Today we are kicking off my masterclass series for Midnight Season 1. Now in this video specifically, I have decided to actually break it up into different episodes. It'll just be easier on me, and I apologize if you wanted, actually most of you guys wanted a full long form video, but we are going to be breaking it up just because of my current schedule. Anyways, in this video, I want to break down the essence of your damage rotation and what that looks like, not including all the different talent variations, the hero talents, the apex talents, etc. I'm also going to talk about some of the major damage choices that players make, mostly in relation to shadowboxing treads and fluidity in motion, and then I'm going to be talking about how to optimize your cooldown window for the maximum damage. Anyways, feel free to use the chapters down below to navigate to any section of the video you want to go to, but with that out of the way, let's dive in. I just want to mention, this video is designed for players who are at endgame, so level 90. So I'm assuming you probably know most of the basics. Now, when it comes to your damage rotation, as long as we're not taking hero talents and apex talents into effect, this is what your rotation is going to look like. You're going to start with a keg smash, followed by a breath of fire, followed by blackout kick, followed by tiger palm. If you stick to these four abilities, this should be your rotation throughout all of time. Now, the reason we're starting with Keg Smash is because of a defensive benefit that it grants. Using abilities like Keg Smash and Blackout Kick, we apply a buff to ourselves called Shuffle, which increases the effectiveness of our stagger. This makes it so the damage that we take is actually turned into a damage over time effect. And this is the primary way that we're going to mitigate damage. But this isn't a video about our mitigation or our healing. We're going to focus on damage. Keg Smash is also one of the hardest hitting abilities in your toolkits when looking at it in a vacuum. There's amplifiers on additional abilities like Tiger Palm, but when you're looking at what ability does the most damage at raw value, we're going to actually see that Keg Smash does this. So getting Keg Smash up early means more damage, it does AoE, and it gives you Shuffle. The reason we're following it with Breath of Fire is because Breath of Fire not only does more AoE damage in a cone in front of you, it also applies a debuff to all targets afflicted by your Keg Smash. This debuff does damage over time, and it reduces the damage that those targets are going to deal to you by 5%. This is another form of mitigation, a very small form of it that you should be aware of, and the reason why we're going Keg into Breath. Following these two abilities, we're now hitting Blackout Kick. So Blackout Kick is a couple cool talents that synergize well with it. First off, things like Shadowboxing Treads allows it to cleave, hitting additional targets, giving you a boost of damage and a boost of survivability. The reason it's giving you the survivability is because of your mastery. Our mastery is called Elusive Brawler, which anytime you dodge an attack or when you hit a mob with Blackout Kick, it's going to grant you a stack of Elusive Brawler, which increases your chance to dodge based off your mastery. So if you have 20% mastery and you hit someone with Blackout Kick, you now have a 20% chance to dodge the next attack. Now, if you're fighting 3 targets and you're running Shadowboxing Treads and you hit all 3 targets, you're going to gain 3 stacks of Elusive Brawler, giving you a 60% chance to dodge the next attack. That does get a little deeper when we introduce talents like Elusive Footwork, but again, we're here to talk about damage. Additional talents like Improved Blackout Kick or talents like Fast Feet in our class tree keep bolstering up the power of Blackout Kick, making a relatively potent part of your rotation. And finally, we also have Blackout Combo. This has been a staple of the Brewmaster kit for quite some time, and it causes your Blackout Kick to empower your next ability. It's either going to empower a Tiger Palm if it's your next cast, or a Keg Smash if that is your next cast instead. And now finally, the last button you're going to be hitting in your rotation is Tiger Palm. Now Tiger Palm at its face value is just a filler. It's a thing you can hit, it costs a little bit of energy, and it does some main physical damage to your primary target. Now it has some additional benefits like reducing your bruise by 1 second, but Tiger Palm becomes extremely potent when we start to introduce new abilities and new talents. Facepalm, for example, increases Tiger Palm's damage by 100% and gives you additional cooldown reduction on your bruise. Counter-Strike also applies another 100% modifier to that damage every time you dodge an attack. You gain a buff, and then your next Tiger Palm or Spinning Crank Kick will deal even more damage on top of it. Every time you dodge an attack, it'll deal even more damage. And then finally, of course, like we just mentioned, Blackout Combo going into Tiger Palm means that your Tiger Palm is going to do another 100% increased damage on top of all of this. Now, the thing about these modifiers is they're not additive, but instead they're multiplicative. So instead of doing a 100 plus 100 plus 100 amp on the base Tiger Palm, it's Tiger Palm at 100% effectiveness, and then that new value is then increased by 100% effectiveness, which then that new value is another 100% effectiveness, making Tiger Palm, with the right conditions, being the hardest hitting thing in your kit. Now there's nuance to this, of course. It has to be following a Blackout Kick and be following a successful dodge, but when you start to combine these things together, your rotation kind of falls into place. So when we're coming back to it, like I said before, our rotation should be Keg Smash into Breath of Fire, into Blackout Kick, into Tiger Palm. So if you stick to this core rotation, your overall damage should actually be quite strong. Now, there will be a point where you notice that Keg Smash is on cooldown for a few extra seconds after you finish this sequence. This is when you're going to start filling in with things like Exploding Keg, or Celestial Infusion, or even your Black Ox. So what you do when you fill is actually going to be based on our Apex talent. So I am going to be jumping a little bit ahead here, but let's talk about our Apex talents and how they work. So most players are going to play all 4 ranks. There's 4 points total you can put into this capstone area, this Apex talent. And what it does is that whenever you drink a brew, so this is going to be your Celestial Infusion or Celestial Brew, depending on which one you're running. It's also counting Purifying Brew, Black Ox Brew, and Fortifying Brew. All 4 of these abilities count as a brew. So whenever you cast one of these, it's going to give you a 20% chance to reset Keg Smash, and it's going to make it free. This is because of the 3 points that we put into it. Now, the final point guarantees that your next Celestial Infusion or Brew or Fortifying Brew will guarantee a reset, giving you an empty barrel, making it free, and applying some healing to your group and yourself. Now, we're not really worried about the healing, but what that means is that when you enter this rotation, you can go Keg, Breath, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, and then you'll repeat that, Keg, Breath, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, and then you'll do this next Keg, Breath, Blackout, Tiger Palm, and then you can hit Celestial Infusion, giving you that Keg Smash back, resetting your rotation, giving you more Keg Smashes to use. So Keg, Breath, Blackout, Tiger Palm, Keg, Breath, Blackout, Tiger Palm. And while this is happening, you'll also be chugging Purifying Brews, giving you additional resets on your Keg Smash. That extra ability, when you have a little bit of a gap between those sequences, you want to fill with Celestial Infusion when it's available, or Exploding Keg. Exploding Keg, very similar to our Apex talent with Celestial Infusion, will also give you a refund on Keg Smash, allowing you to continue your rotation per usual. So let's talk about the main difference. So we've talked about the core rotation and how that works, as well as how to fill it with the Apex talent. Let's now talk about shifting this rotation instead of a 4 sequence to a 3 sequence. So this is going to happen when we swap over to something like Fluidity in Motion. This has been the probably hottest talking point for Brewmasters of this season. We're seeing a lot of players on the Chinese region, as well as now EU and NA, start playing this, especially in Mythic Plus. So what I'm about to talk about will relate to both Mythic Plus and Raid. Now, the major benefit of swapping to Fluidity in Motion as a talent is that it makes your Blackout Kick, instead of a 4-second cooldown, a 3-second cooldown. So you're able to cast it 25% more often. Now, you are going to be losing out on that cleave, and you're going to be losing out on the 20% more damage. So in cases where you are not able to hit multiple targets, Fluidity in Motion actually makes sense. When you are able to hit a lot of targets, like in Mythic Plus, Shadowboxing Tread still has a lot of merit to it. And you're going to see arguments either way. But when we swap to Fluidity in Motion, we can now cast Blackout Kick every 3 seconds instead of every 4. And so let's talk about what that rotation is going to look like. I still personally recommend opening up with a Keg Smash because you do want that shuffle buff active, but you can go Breath if you want, but then it's going to be Blackout, Tiger Palm, Keg, and then instead of going to Breath of Fire, you want to go back to Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, then Breath. And then you're going to go Blackout, Tiger Palm, Keg, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, Breath. Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, Keg. And now what it's looking like is those first 2 in the sequence will pretty much always be the same. It's always going to be Blackout Kick and a Tiger Palm. And now that third ability is swapping between Breath of Fire and Keg Smash respectively. And then whenever you are out of charges, out of energy, or out of range, you can start filling with things like Celestial Infusion. Obviously, you're going to be fishing for Purifying Brews, or even Exploding Keg. Now, there's some nuance here, because what happens when you're in Mythic Plus and you're in a large pool and you don't necessarily want to Tiger Palm? Your rotation actually will then shift to, you can go Keg into Breath, and then you can go Blackout, Keg, Breath. Blackout, and then I don't have it here, so I can Celestial Infusion, Keg, Blackout, Breath, Keg, Blackout, Breath, Tiger Palm. And you basically always want to be going then into Blackout Keg for reduction on your brews, so you can gamble by hitting those Purifying Brews to fish for those Apex talent procs to reset Keg Smashes. So this would only be true in maybe like large AoE where you feel like you need the extra brew reduction. Now you can argue it's a damage gain because if you're getting more cooldown on your your brews, you can gamble more for those resets, which gives you more keg smashes, which is technically a damage gain in AoE. Now, Tiger Palm is still a very valuable spell for priority damage on a specific mob or a boss. But a big reason why people are enjoying Fluidity and Motion in keys right now is because it allows you to actually ignore Tiger Palm all the time in AoE, just really focusing on purifying and spamming your keg smash and breath. Now, ultimately, it's going to come down to which you prefer. There are still players at the top of the ladder at the time of recording this video who are playing both. But I would argue it's still more of a comfort choice. Now, what I'll say is, if you try playing Fluidity Emotion and Mythic Plus, and you aren't hitting Blackout Kick pretty much on cooldown, it's already a pretty sizable loss. So if you are playing Fluidity Emotion, it is very important you hit Blackout Kick on cooldown, and you make sure you're staying in melee range of the mobs when you're hitting them, because moving out of melee range will cause you to miss those globals, because unlike Keg Smash and Breath of Fire, which just require a target to be within range, Blackout Kick requires you to be in melee. Just remember this, when you're playing Shadowboxing, your rotation will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and you repeat that until there's a gap. When there's a gap, you can fill with Celestial Infusion. When you're playing Fluidity, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. So the last thing that I want to talk about in this video is I want to talk through the opening rotation for Brewmaster monks with their Ox. I've been doing a fair bit of coaching so far this season, and this is probably the biggest thing that I see players struggle with. So I'm going to show you guys this in Algothar Academy, and this is how you should always be treating your Black Ox windows. So I'm going to assume you have all of the resources available to you, including Black Ox Brew, Exploding Keg, as well as Fortifying Brew. Now, there is always the option to play something like Bob and Weave, but I'm going to talk about that, the benefit of that talent, in a different video. So let us just go into one Lasher pull here and keep it nice and simple. So the way that you want to do this is you want to start off by hitting Keg Smash, and this is going to give you Shuffle. You can then cast Breath as you start to gather the pull, and then you want to Keg Smash one more time, and this is what I'm calling this is priming your breath. When you hit Ox, you want to be able to go in with basically at least Breath and one charge of Keg Smash. So we're going to activate our Black Ox now. We're going to go Breath of Fire immediately, into Keg, into Breath, into Keg, into Breath, into Celestial Infusion, back into Keg, into Breath, into Keg, into Breath. I can then explode, Keg, Breath, Keg, Breath, and then if I don't hit on my Purifying Brews, I'm just spamming resets. So then Keg, Breath, we purify once, we can Keg, Breath, purify again, we don't hit, we can Fortifying Brew into another Breath. Your goal inside of this window is to ideally hit at least 7 Breath of Fires, and that's assuming you have no resources available like Exploding Keg, Fortifying Brew, or Black Ox Brew. If you have those resources available, it is possible to hit up to 11 or sometimes even 12 if you're just like crazy gaming it and you get really lucky with procs. So something that I didn't do in this example is I wasn't spamming Purifying Brew as much as I should because I was trying to walk you guys through the example. But we're going to do that again in just a few seconds here so I can show you what it'll look like in the case of purifying a little bit more often. The one thing I do want to mention, though, really quick is using Fortifying Brew as an offensive kind of talent to reset your keg is a dangerous game to play. Especially as you start getting into higher keys, it is nice to spread out the two defensives, but if you know as a player, for the next couple minutes, I don't need Fortifying Brew to live any of the things that I'm about to do, feel free to use it as an offensive to get a nice early reset on Keg Smash through your Apex talent, because you're going to be benefiting from a ton of cooldown reduction anyways. So going into this pull here, I am not going to have access to Fortifying Brew, but let's still talk about exactly what this cow will look like. So once again, we're going to open up with a Keg Smash. We can then go into our Ox if we want. It's Breath, Keg, Breath, and then we can Explode to reset. Keg, Breath, Purify, Keg, Breath, Purify in between. I don't hit, so I reset with Celestial Infusion, Keg, Breath. I can then Blackout Kick for Keg to get an extra reset on my Purifying Brews. I'm still not hitting, I'm just getting terribly unlucky. Go into Blackout Kick, Keg, Breath, Purify, and then now we're kind of out of things. But I was still able to get off 8 there, even without having everything available. Sometimes you can get lucky with Purifying Brew resets on your Keg Smash, sometimes you just don't hit, and that's a-okay. So that is how you use your Black Ox. Your goal is to always get 7 Breath of Fires inside of that 25-second window. Best case scenario, you get 11, maybe 12 if you get crazy lucky, but don't count on it. A really good Ox window is about 10, a really good one is 11, and a God one is like 12. But make sure you're trying to always hit 7 inside of that window. Even in single target, I tend to try to focus on that as well. But that is going to be the end of my first masterclass episode. I'm going to be talking about some defensive usages in the next one, along with how stagger works and mitigation. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys so much, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.